You know, I come from a musical family. My father was an attorney and also a jazz musician on the side. And, you know, we played every night, often once we were old enough to play. There were three of us, my brother Randy, my sister Emily, and myself. And you know, having access to the instruments and watching other people coming over and play them as well had an enormous influence on us.
And how old were you then, when you first picked up your first instrument?
I first picked up clarinet when I was somewhere 6 or 7 years old. My brother Randy started playing when he was 5, I think, started playing trumpet.
And when did you start your first lessons?
Around the same time. I started with a teacher. I had a very good clarinet teacher and studied clarinet for 5 or 6 years.
And the sax. You started with clarinet and sax?
Yeah, I started with just the clarinet and then eventually switched to the sax.
The tenor sax?
To the alto sax.
Alto sax.
Yeah, and then switched to tenor.
What made you switch? Was there any reason for that?
The switch to alto was because I was feeling frustrated trying to play jazz on clarinet, partially, and I always loved the saxophone. The records that I was listening to at that time were mostly saxophone records.
Right.
And then I heard a saxophonist, a great saxophonist named Cannonball Adderley, when I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. And at that point, I just wanted to play alto. I wanted to have an alto and start to take alto lessons, and my parents agreed.
Did your parents want you to pursue a career in music?
You know, my parents gave me a lot of support in a lot of different areas. They were, you know, good providers and good supporters as well. And certainly they were proud of us. I mean, my father in particular, since he was a kind of a musician and a frustrated musician, you know, he had a chance to kind of vicariously, have a good time watching us play music as well, and was very supportive of us choosing music as a livelihood. But we also felt that, you know, we were supported in whatever choices we would have made. You know, I made other forays into, you know, pre-med, and, you know, I had a lab at home. I was interested in chemistry and biology, and but we were all sort of bitten by the music bug. And it was also a good way, I think when I was a kid, it really got my father's attention. You know, there's those kind of elements in there as well. I remember when I began college, I at one point switched to pre-med because I was going to pursue medicine, and was supported for that as well. But I just ended up at the music school every day, practicing and playing with the guys in the school, and then just ended up falling into music.
And then when did you decide to go to New York?
When I was 19 years old, I actually left school and moved to New York. My father gave me a couple of months' rent, money for a couple of months' rent, and said, "You're on your own." And I was very lucky because my brother Randy had already been living in New York for a couple of years, pursuing music as a livelihood. So he was really, you know, kind and gracious to me. He introduced me to everybody,
right? Everybody
he knew, and he had already kind of made a name for himself. And I just, you know, immediately got some good private teachers and just started trying to make rehearsals and whatever, you know, gigs I could get, and learn what I could. You know, it was a very you know, when I think back, it was such in a way, an irresponsible decision to split school and move to New York at 19 years old.
Well, thank God you did.
Well, it worked out for me. It ended up, I was lucky, and I had the support of my brother, you know, and my parents as well, you know. So, and I started working fairly early, so the 2 or 3 months rent that, you know, that my parents gave me, I didn't really need any money after that. I started making enough money to support myself.
Who are your influences at that time in New York?
Certainly John Coltrane was a huge influence, and I was right in the thick of it at that point. He had been an influence, you know, since I was in high school. But, you know, countless other people. You know, Miles Davis certainly was a huge influence, and you know, a lot of piano players, McCoy Tyner, Herbie Hancock, people that I was playing with at the time, Dave Liebman. There was a saxophonist named Jim Pepper who was a great influence on me. I had heard him play on a record, and somehow that changed my life. And I mean, the list is huge. I'm kind of blanking out right now, but it's a lot of people.
And the Dreams happened in New York, didn't they?
Dreams happened in 1970. My brother and I were signed with a gentleman named Barry Rogers, signed to Columbia Records under Clive Davis at that point. This was a rock band with horns, much like Blood, Sweat and Tears in Chicago. But the only difference was we really pretty much jazz musicians in this group, but we're jazz musicians that had grown up listening to rock and playing R&B, and we made up the horn parts every night. We improvised them. They weren't written out, which was quite different.
And you also did 3 CDs, which were totally improv.
We did 2 with Dreams.
2 with Dreams, right.
And they weren't actually totally improv, but there was a lot of improv on them. And
so you enjoy improv and going into the studio. Is there a difference? Which you prefer?
Well, I really enjoy improvising in a live setting with other musicians that are capable of creating spontaneously in the now, in the present moment. I mean, there's nothing like it with that kind of intimate interaction with other musicians that are capable of that. And in the studio, I enjoy that as well, though it's a different experience. And in the studio, one has to come in a lot more prepared. So I certainly arrive at a session, if it's my own session, with music that's very well prepared and thought out. And then since it's done that way, we're able to improvise because we know what the parameters are. And then we're able to really be spontaneous.
Which you prefer as a musician, even as a musician celebrity, playing the Brecker brothers or playing solo by yourself, or having played with all these, which I love to talk about, all these great musicians in the past? I
love it all.
There's not one that...
I love it all. The experience and the ability to get up and play with musicians whom I love, both musically, on stage and off stage, I like it all. I just enjoy playing music.
Right.
And whether it's with my own group, which I love doing, or going out and playing, with my brother, which I love doing. And that, each one involves kind of a different repertoire and a different approach. And it keeps it fresh for me, changing up. I think I would probably get tired of constantly leading my own group and having to, it would keep me busy constantly changing the music because I don't like to get stuck. But the ability to be able to shift and play with somebody else, either as a special guest or as in a collaboration, I really enjoy.